You know who else was called an Uncle Tom?
Reverend Martin Luther King preaches a doctrine of nonviolent insistence upon the rights of the American Negro. What is your attitude toward this philosophy?
The white man pays Reverend Martin Luther King, subsidizes Reverend Martin Luther King, so that Reverend Martin Luther King can continue to teach the Negroes to be defenseless. That's what you mean by nonviolent. Be defenseless. Be defenseless in the face of one of the most cruel beasts that has ever taken the people into captivity. That's this American white man. And they have proved it throughout the country by the police dogs and the police clubs. 100 years ago, they used to put on a white sheet and use a bloodhound against Negroes. Today, they have taken off the white sheet and put on police uniforms. They've traded in the bloodhounds for police dogs, and they're still doing the same thing. And just as Uncle Tom, back during slavery, used to keep the Negroes from resisting the bloodhound or resisting the Ku Klux Klan by teaching them to love their enemy or pray for those who use them despitefully. Today, Martin Luther King is just a 20th century or modern Uncle Tom or a religious Uncle Tom who is doing the same thing today to keep Negroes defenseless in the face of attack that Uncle Tom did on the plantation to keep those Negroes defenseless in the face of the attacks of the Klan in that day.
The speaker was none other than Malcolm X, who later on renounced that attitude. He went to Mecca. He came back, and as I mentioned, before he went to Mecca, he gave a speech at a college where he talked about the white man being devils. And this white college co-ed came up to him and said, Mr. X, not all of white people are devils. Not all of us dislike black people. Some of us want to help. What can I do to help? And he looked at her and said nothing and walked away. If you read the last chapter of the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, written by Alex Haley, the man that wrote Roots, he renounced that. And he was asked about the time he told this white female college student there was nothing white people can do. He said, I've thought about that many times, and I regret that. He said, I was filled with hate. And with hate, you say a lot of silly things. And I wish I had that opportunity to speak with her again. There was a stamp of Malcolm X, despite the fact that at one time he referred to white people as devils. There is no stamp of George Wallace, who stood famously in front of a school door and said segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Recall there was an attempted assassination. He was paralyzed, put in a wheelchair, rest of his life. 9 years later, after that segregation now speech, is when he was shot. Well, one day, after he was shot without invitation, he went to a black church where there were 300 black clergymen holding a conference. He asked to speak. Again, no one expected him to be there. So he's wheeled up, and he asked for forgiveness. He said to the church leaders, and I'm quoting him, I never had hate in my heart for any person, but I regret my support of segregation and the pain it caused the black people of our state and nation. I've learned what pain is, and I'm sorry if I've caused anybody else pain. Segregation was wrong, and I am sorry. End of quote. Voters in Alabama returned him to office as governor. This time he received black support, made several black appointments. So if there is a statue for George Wallace, do we take it down? Do we leave it up? I'm not sure how many things are named after him, if any, in Alabama, but history's complicated. There's a Confederate general named William Mahone. He was one of General Lee's most able commanders. He owned slaves before the Civil War, but after the war, he became a leader of what was called the Readjuster Party. It was an interracial political alliance in the post-emancipation South. In 1881, Mahone was elected to Senate. At the time, it was split 37-37 between Republicans and Democrats, but he aligned with the Republicans, the party that was founded 2 decades earlier by Northerners who wanted to stop the expansion of slavery. From 1879 to 1883, his Readjuster Party dominated Virginia, with a governor, 2 readjusters in the Senate, readjusters representing 6 of the 10 districts. Readjusters established what became the Virginia State University. That was the first state-supported college to train black teachers. Democrats hated them, referred to them as advocates of black domination, end of quote. History is complicated.